What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this one, I'm going to be showing you how to build the best $1,000 gaming PC you can put together right now. With an MSI Ventus RTX 3060 and an Intel Core i5-12400F, this is a build that means business without breaking the bank. I'll be walking through all the components that make this build possible, exactly how it performs a little bit later, and how to assemble it as we go. Let's do this.
I just wanna
The Corsair iQ5000T provides the ultimate in airflow, RGB lighting and mounting compatibility for PC builds in 2022. With 3 alloy fans included, 160 addressable RGB lights in the front, roof and floor panels, Corsair have really taken things up a notch. Learn more about the awesome 5000T in our build videos over on the channel or at the where to buy links in the description below. Let's kick things off by taking a look at the CPU and GPU combo first of all. I alluded to MSI's Ventus 3060 in the intro of this video. It's a 3-fan card that comes in at an awesome price point and is going to perform fantastically well at 1080p with a bit of 1440p gaming possible too. The cooler's really nice, it's factory overclocked, 3 fans is going to keep it nice and chilly, and the 12GB of VRAM is surprisingly more than the more pricey 3060 Ti. Plus, if widespread rumours are to be believed, and history does repeat itself, this isn't a GPU Nvidia are likely to replace first. The early cards are more likely to be high-end GPUs, making this still a great buy at this time of year. It also couples up perfectly with our Intel Core i5-12400F, one of Intel's fantastic 12th gen i5 CPUs. The F simply means it lacks any graphics, and the mix of performance and efficiency cores with great clock speeds makes it a fantastic bet. Your CPU and GPU combo are arguably the most pivotal 2 components in any gaming build, and will define roughly the performance you can come to expect. Keep your eyes peeled for new Ryzen 7000 CPUs, but once again the 12400F is positioned in a place where anything AMD bring out is likely to be more pricey, making this in some senses quite a well future-proofed combo. I'm going to be installing our CPU into this, the MSI MAG B660 Mortar Wi-Fi. Picking up a motherboard for Intel 12th gen processors is a bit more complicated than you would think. Now you're probably thinking, James, how can picking out a motherboard be particularly complicated? Other than understanding the basic chipset, so Z690, which is the higher end one, B660, which is your mid-range option, what other factors are there to consider? Well, actually quite a lot. Whether or not the board has Wi-Fi included is a big one. This does. A bigger one is whether it supports DDR5 or DDR4 memory. For any system under about $2,000, you're going to want to opt for DDR4, which this board can facilitate, saving you quite a lot of cash. Those new DDR5 kits are still very expensive. This one ticks a lot of boxes for us though. It supports Gen 4 SSDs, it's got a good I/O, it's got that Wi-Fi and DDR4 support I alluded to earlier. We're going to pop our CPU in by pulling up the retention arm and then taking the socket up as well, and then dropping our processor into place. Give it a little bit of a wiggle, but nothing too aggressive, before popping the cover back down and adding our arm in to secure everything down. While we've still got room to deal with our motherboard, I'm also going to pop in a couple of other components, namely our RAM, Geil Orion RGB DDR4, and our SSD, the XPG Spectrix S40G. I'll come back to the S40G in a second, but first let's look at the memory. We actually reviewed this in a recent article over on the website, and found it to be a really solid budget-oriented kit. With RGB, decent timings and a nice heat spreader, it's also certified to work with Intel XMP and AMD Ryzen to make sure you can get those maximum clock speeds. The 3200MHz speed is also perfect for our Intel processor, and the RAM installs nice and easily in these slots to the right hand of the CPU. Make sure any labels and stuff are facing towards the processor with the clean side facing outwards. Not only does it look better, but that's the way the RAM needs to be installed to actually fit into the slot. While we're here, we're also going to come back to our SSD, the XPG Spectrix S40G. This 500GB drive is awesome value, but they also do a bigger 1TB capacity if you've got the wallet to stomach it. If you're really desperately in need of more storage, I'd also recommend considering a hard drive drive, as that's likely to give you lots of mass storage in addition to your Windows boot SSD, which can also be used for your favourite titles and all that jazz. This drive also has a bit of RGB, making it look fantastic, and is easily installed in our top M.2 slot. It's going to match with our RAM as well, and we should be able to sync all the RGB inside of MSI's Mystic Light software. Lovely stuff. The final component to also pop in at this stage is the cooler. Now, you could go for something a bit cheaper, like the Cooler Master 212 Evo, or if you can bag yourself a nice deal, I mean, Black Friday's coming up soon, just saying, then something like this Master Air MA612 from Cooler Master, the stealth version, could also be a great bet. With any CPU cooler installation, you do need to consult the manual quite vigorously, as it is a difficult... I think we'll try consulting the manual again in a couple of moments. What is that? It's a fighter jet or something. With any CPU cooler installation, you will need to consult the manual, as the process can be a little bit complicated to say the least. If I find our Intel page, we need to install a backplate, that's all pretty normal, and then some posts around the top of the CPU area. We're going to add in 2 plates, which the cooler will then secure onto, but remember to take the fans off the cooler for this stage, and we can add them back on later, once the whole cooler has been installed into the case. These fans are just going to get in the way of actually installing the motherboard and make things a bit more tricky. With the cooler on, the motherboard assembly is looking pretty good, and we can take a look at the case next of all. I've gone for a bit of an MSI full house, follow a theme shall we say, and this is their Forge 100M, which they say is supposedly beyond the power. Honestly, some of these like case slogans get even more obscene in the nicest possible way. It's a great case, we've got 2 RGB fans at the front, it's mesh, it's got this cool like divide, it's a pretty good budget case actually, and it does things just that little bit differently. It doesn't feel like a generic mesh case, so to speak. A tempered glass side panel, which is actually shorter because it sits above the PSU shield, a nice touch. Dust filters, great airflow, and pretty much everything you could want from a budget chassis, this thing provides. Strip all of the side panels off your case, you can leave the front panel on for this build, and lie flat on your clean work surface to go ahead for the next stage where we're going to install the motherboard. What we then need to do at this stage is take the motherboard and locate all of these avoid collision circles. Now these are where we're going to be installing the standoffs for the motherboard to screw into. Looking at the case, it is an ATX chassis by default, which may mean some are in the wrong place, but I've got a sneaking suspicion we've used this motherboard and case combo before. 3 at the top, they're in the right place, as are the 3 along the middle. 2 down here at slightly different heights are also spot on, and an extra one in the bottom left, which we won't be using, isn't going to get in the way. Any extra standoffs that are underneath the motherboard need to be taken out, but obviously, if they're miles away from any PCB, you'll be A-okay. It's already got an IO shield built in, meaning we don't need to bother with that stage. We can simply slide the motherboard into the case, line it up over those standoffs, and push the IO through the rear. What are you not going in for? There we are. There is a cable poking through. And now in theory, there we are. It's in. Screw in the 3 screws at the top, 3 across the middle, and 2 down the bottom at different heights. Pop your fan back on for the CPU cooler, and we're off to the races. Looking really, really good. At this stage then, we can pop in a graphics card. I talked about the MSI Ventus 3X3060 a little bit earlier. It's a great card, it's going to be nice and cool, and it fits within our case with no problems at all. Line it up with the PCI slot. That's the one at the very top here. Apply a bit of pressure and you'll hear a satisfying, hopefully, click sound. Lovely. We can add in some screws as well to secure it in, stop it from going anywhere, and we'll be giving it power next when we look at the cables and wiring for our build. So far though, so good. That looks really, really nice. GPU fills the case nicely and helps to prevent the whole thing feeling too empty. To install the power supply, we can lift our PC up and get it back upright so it's nicely back in the right location, and we can add in our Corsair CX650F power supply. With an 80+ bronze certification, this thing's fairly efficient, plenty of power cables for what we need, a fully modular interface, and heck, even an RGB fan. This ticks lots of boxes and is going to work well for what we're trying to achieve here. The whole thing is also going to fit in the rear of our case, no problem. It's quite a small power supply, really. They're all a standard kind of width and height, but it's the depth or the length of them, shall we say, that is going to be the differentiating factor. You get a bag of included cables, and you're definitely not going to need all of these. So no need to go ham trying to squeeze them all in and worry about cable management later. The first cable we need to add in is our motherboard connection. One end goes up to the power supply and the other to the right hand side of the motherboard. It's a similar story with our GPU. The 2 ends over here are for the graphics card itself, although it only requires one end, with our singular end going to the power supply. supply. The CPU connection is next up. If you're wondering which end goes where, the one with this split in the middle that can be divided into two, handily labelled CPU, goes to the processor in the top left corner of the board, where this end that can't be split goes to the power supply. Finally, we also need to plug in a SATA power connection. The thin SATA power cables are what we'll be using to power up the RGB hub. One of these will do nicely, and then our 6-pin standard cube end is going to go to the power supply itself. Nice and easy, just take your time step by step with these. We have got a full guide for cable and wiring on the website, which you can check out to learn a bit more about this in a little bit more detail. And then we're pretty much done. I'm going to do some cable management and boot the system up to take a look at performance next, working through some of the biggest titles out there. In Fortnite, when testing at 1080p competitive settings, that's everything tuned down to low except the render distance, which is set to far, this build achieved just shy of 190 frames per second on average, 189 FPS to be precise. The game provided a really incredible playable gaming experience with these competitive frame rates that are sure to work well when matched with a high-end, high refresh rate monitor. Our results in Valorant were also similarly positive. 1440p high in this title yielded over 300 frames per second. Valorant is one of the easier games to run on our list today, but a great shout nevertheless. And obviously look fantastic. You don't need a high-end GPU to run Valorant, and this build copes with it very well. Apex Legends was a similarly positive story. 1080p high settings here. We pulled in 161 frames per second on average. Not quite the highs of Valorant, but still a very good playable experience. These high settings in first-person shooters really will help you get the competitive edge, and paired with Nvidia's reflex technology, you're sure to not be disappointed. All of our frame rate data was captured with both MSI Afterburner's Riva Tuner and Nvidia FrameView to ensure maximum fairness. Spider-Man is next on our list today, one of the brand new titles on our list, and here at 1080p high settings, we pulled in just over 80 frames per second on average. 90 and 99th percentile results were strong, and while this was a little lower than some of our titles today, is a good frame rate for the kind of game that Spider-Man is. If it was a really competitive first-person shooter, 100 FPS or above would have been more handy. Finally, we also tested out F1 2022. All you racing game lovers out there are sure to be satisfied with this build, where at 1080p on the ultra-high preset, we pulled in 80 frames per second bang on. The 3060 really is a card that sits between the 60 and 100 FPS mark in a bulk of titles, and Formula 1 looked fantastic today with these high visual settings still providing a fantastic frame rate. And on that note, that pretty much wraps it up. If you enjoyed our benchmarks and the whole video, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.